everybody. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Riley, aka Honey Rags, and I am a full-time reseller. So, as you can tell by the title, I have a really special vintage clothing haul to show you guys, and then at the end of the vintage, I'm going to show you guys my brand name bread and butter items while I'm at it. A quick recap for those of you who don't know or need a little refreshment. When I started reselling way back when, which was only 2016, because I'm only 25, I started reselling vintage. With that said, I consider myself a vintage enthusiast. I do think my knowledge is more than the average person when it comes to dating vintage items, you know, vintage clothing, vintage homeware, kitchenware, stuff like that. However, I didn't go to college and get a degree to be in the antique trade. I'm not an expert. So if you need to correct me on something, feel free. But I do think that most of my research on these items is pretty dang accurate. I have to get that out of the way. I don't want you guys to think I'm like the expert to come to date something vintage. Obviously, the older you get, the more special it is because it's harder to find. And I do have a dress from the 1930s that honestly deserves its own video, but I'm gonna save that for last. It's not usual for me to find a 1930s dress or a bunch of dresses pre-1970. That's not typical. This is probably my biggest vintage dress haul that I've had in one thrift shop. But what happened was there was somebody's great-great-grandmother passed away, and she donated her grandmother's great-great-grandmother's wardrobe and all of her belongings that the family didn't want to hold on to. I found that out when I was checking out because I thought it was really weird that I was finding things from the 1930s up until the 1970s in pretty much the same size that were clearly probably from the same wardrobe, just because, like I said, it's not every day I walk into a thrift shop and find a bunch of vintage dresses. So when I checked out, I actually asked, I was like, hey, what's up with all this, you know? And she informed me about the drop-off of somebody's great-great-grandmother's estate. So anyway, I'm gonna dive right in. This first piece is a 1970s dress. Now, when I first saw this, it reminds me of like a sweetheart neckline, but this isn't actually a sweetheart neckline, but it reminded me of that. And the first thing I thought of was like 1940s pinup. Obviously, looking back, it's a little scandalous for 1940s because there's like a little split leg up here. But this has a plastic zipper, which tells me this was made after the early mid 1960s, because prior to the early 1960s they used metal zippers. So keep that in mind if you find something with a plastic zipper. Unless the zipper's been replaced, it's probably no older than the 1960s. But this was still special enough to come home with me. It's not typical like what you typically think of when I think of a 1970s dress. I think of like a hippie maxi dress, which I actually have a couple to show you guys. I definitely don't think of this. This one is really special. This is a 1970s maxi dress, and would you just look at this print? And for reference, you guys, I FaceTimed my grandma, who was actually around in the 70s, and she was very hip for her times. And I just confirmed with her like all of the styles, confirming that, yeah, these are 1970s, because another thing that I always look for is I look at the inside stitching, and this overlock stitch was something that they didn't do like prior to the 1970s either. I also look at the tags. So if it has like any type of machine wash instructions label, it's probably 1970s or later. But this one, obviously you can tell by like this older crispy tag that it's vintage. But I just had to confirm with my grandma that this was in fact 1970s. So this one I think I'm going to ask a pretty penny for because of the style. These ones I was on the fence about. I kept going back. I kept putting them back, and you'll see why I'm saying them because they're very similar. These are 1970s maxi dresses, just very typical 1970s, you know, trendy woman, whatever you want to call it. But they do have these vintage tags. I can also usually tell by like the sizing, because vintage sizing was not what it is today, let me tell you. This piece, the only reason I was thinking about leaving it behind is because it is so simple, but the specific thrift store that I went to, their dresses were only $3.99. So how could I pass that up? This is that other one that I was talking about. This totally reminds me of like 70s game show because of the silhouette and just the way that it's tailored right here. Very, what do they call it? Quintessential. Just very like game show poster 70s. I tried this one on and it actually fit, so I might be keeping it for myself. It has a tie that you would tie around the back. Again, a plastic zipper. These dresses are really heavy too compared to like a maxi dress that you would find at the mall today. Oh, this one's so exciting. This is another 70s. This is a crochet bib jumpsuit. I wanted to say romper. Jumpsuit. When I first saw this, I thought it was a dress and I was just as excited. But when I actually saw that it was a jumpsuit, I think my heart dropped. There is a little bit of like damage, as you can tell, but considering the age, I mean, this bad boy is really special. Now we're starting to get into, we're getting into the older things now. I had to show you guys the 1970s pieces first because I got to build you guys up. This is a 1940s, it's just called a poncho for now, okay? And it does have replaced buttons. Unfortunately, I can tell because the, well, first of all, I can tell the buttons are sewn on by hand. Second of all, I can tell by the threading. So unfortunately, the buttons were replaced, but this is still really, really special. This is wool. And here's the tag on the inside. This one was one that I paid up for, $9.99, which really wasn't paying up, but because they marked it differently, they must have known that it was a little bit special. This one, I don't know what I'm going to list this one for yet. I have to do more research on this bad boy. This is I thought for sure when I first saw this that it was a 1940s dress with like a house coat. This isn't a house coat either. Over it, because of the neckline, because of the silhouette, and because of this tag on it, and these tags down here, these were actually like the clothing tags. So this is technically vintage dead stock. So the price is actually stapled on it right here, the original price. When I first saw this, I thought for sure 1940s, but what has me second guessing is that it has this metal zipper. This is what I'm talking about, you guys, with a metal zipper. The zipper is a center zipper. It goes all the way down the back. So in the 1940s, like, zippers on dresses were kind of just now coming to be a thing. And they had a lot of side zippers and a lot of partial neck zippers where they would only zip down to here. But for a zipper to go all the way down to the back, that tells me that it's probably more likely 1950s. Not that they didn't have any center zippers in the 40s, but obviously they weren't as common. So my 1930s velvet dress, I don't even want to hold it up. I'm afraid that I'm going to sacrifice the quality by doing this. I love it so much. This is a 1930s, very, very long velvet dress. If you're looking for a dress that is almost 100 years old, don't look for a zipper. They don't have them. So this has like a button down back. It has these little latch. Is that what they're called? Latch buttons? That's what I've always called them, but I don't know if that's like the right terminology. These are down the back and it has some down the side. It speaks for itself. How did I date this one? Well, for one, I could tell pretty much the minute I grabbed it that it was old. This is all hand beaded. The buttons were a dead giveaway. The stitching on the inside and just the style, really. So obviously this is my treasure piece. I want to keep this one for myself, but I know I will always be too afraid to wear this one. I have a lot of kids, so the chances of me wearing this without being too afraid to damage it are like nil. So that one's really special. I want to do more research into the actual style so that if I do list it, I can, you know, the mock neck, the intricate beading, the velvet. Think of like 1930s Hollywood. Like that's what that reminds me of. I found this vintage belt. This is a belt. This is a 1950s belt. So this has I think it's called the seed beading, and it needs a little bit of repairs. How do I date a belt like this? Well, I cheated. I cheated, you guys. There was a pile of items from this estate drop-off, and they were all in the same place. So I could, common sense, everything in the pile was, you know, pre-1970, pre-1960. So I knew when I saw this that this was probably 1950s just based on the style. I found this beautiful 1950s kiss closure clasp purse. It's really, you can't tell in the camera, but it's pastel. Really beautiful. I found these beautiful gloves. These I'm going to keep for myself because I've always wanted to find a nice pair of like 1930s, 1940s petite gloves that you would wear like to an evening night out to look all fancy and crap. And I also cheated with these. These were also in the pile of estate drop-off. I went there the same day that they put all these out, right? So they hadn't been picked through. They hadn't been moved around a ton. I was able to cheat. I pretty much had them handed to me, not literally, but, you know, there was an area of this estate drop-off that they hadn't really gone through or put out yet. So I just pretty much grabbed what I knew was good. So these are just scarves in women's like handkerchiefs. Is that a term that you use for women's, or is that like more of a men's thing? I don't know, but I grabbed everyone. Obviously this first one's my favorite. This reminds me of 1930s, but I don't want to go that far because I'm not positive on that. I have to, and it's hard to tell with these because the stitching is just so delicate. I think I'm more excited about them than anybody. So anyway, now I'm going to move on to the bread and butter finds, which are going to look boring now because I just got done with all that cool vintage stuff. This is a Hannah Anderson kids sweater. I'm going to put like 20 bucks on it just because I really like that style. This is a Splendid top. Cardigan. This is a really cute cardigan. It's really nice. Obviously Splendid. That's a pretty good brand. So I think I'm going to list this for like 25. Maybe I'll start it at 30. Do I think I'm going to get 30 out of it? Probably not. This Roots Athletic, which is a Canadian-based activewear brand that always sells for me. This is a woman's hoodie. Probably listed around 30. Again, I don't expect to get 30, but I'm going to start that one off a little bit higher. This is a Madewell top with a back that like completely zips up if you want the back to be split. Probably start that one at 25. This is my first time finding this brand, Ivory Ella, which they're actually really expensive new. They sell them at Von Mar. I know that. This one I'm actually going to be giving to one of my friends. But that is resellable. This is a North Face hoodie. I'm probably just going to list at 20. I found a lot of North Face this time around too, but I only picked up the best pieces. This is a Calia, which is a Carrie Underwood activewear brand that actually has a really big following. Now, because of this design, I'm going to start this one at like between $25 and $30 because this is beautiful. And I do think that one will go relatively fast. This is a Norma Kamali simple little black dress, which I actually think I'm going to keep for myself. But it would be a good brand to resell. I have resold Norma Kamali before. She's a designer. This is an Ellie Tahari silk dress. Look at this pattern. Isn't this cute? I think I'm going to start this one around $50 because this is in really, really nice condition. And this is like a modern piece. I found this Free People tunic. Now, Free People hasn't been doing the best for me. I'm going to be honest with you guys. But I love that this has like a really fancy embroidered neck area. So I'm going to list this one around $28 and just drop it down from there if I have to. This is an Eileen Fisher blazer, cardigan, zip, whatever you want to call it. I'll probably put all of them in the tag words. I think I'm going to list this one around $45 because this is a newer Eileen Fisher piece and it's really nice. I have no idea why somebody would donate that. This is a North Face, another North Face. This isn't a hoodie. This is just like a nice little teddy. I think I'm going to list this one around $30. It's not every day that I find a North Face piece like that. And this is, again, another North Face. This one's pretty basic, but considering the color is so light, there's like no discolorations, none at the neckline, none at the cuff. It seems just barely worn. So I think I'm gonna list this one around 30 as well. This is my first time picking up Kendall and Kylie. So Kendall and Kylie, the Kardashian Jenners, whatever you want to call them. Some people always pick up their stuff. I've just only ever seen really basic pieces from them, so I've always left them behind. But I like this one because I like the floral sleeves, and a good graphic top never hurt anybody. I don't know what I'm going to list this for yet. I know their stuff isn't like hundreds of dollars new, so we'll see. A pair of Can jeans. I'll put 20 bucks on these. And last but not least, to show you guys, I have this new with tags, whatever you want to call it. You could have had a bad witch, like Hocus Pocus printed graphic hoodie. Now, this one will sell like a hotcake near Halloween, but I think I will have good luck with it anyway. I think I'm gonna just list it at like 25 bucks, see what happens. It's not like superior quality or anything, but it's a cult classic. So yeah, that is my clothing haul. I realized halfway through the video that I was standing like this close to my camera, so my face is cut out, but as long as you guys can see the pieces, I don't really care. So hopefully that was informative enough for you guys, and I will probably be doing another clothing haul video next week because I can't stop myself from sourcing lately. Yeah, so as always, thank you so much for watching. You guys can go ahead and follow me over on Instagram at honey.rags, which I will leave a link down below in the description. I'm way better at responding over on Instagram. It's just more user-friendly. I say that a lot, but I do read all my YouTube comments. So go ahead and drop a comment below if you feel the need to correct me. Please do. And I think that is all. So I'm going to end this video here. So as always, happy selling, happy hunting, happy thrifting, happy selling.